indeed, there's so many things we can achieve. Can you see me from here? Okay. There's so many things we can explore and achieve and learn about our community, about our history, about our country through the arts, right? The arts provide us that platform that can reach you in another way, right? Okay, so without further ado, we will invite our third speaker, Ms. Aziza Zakaria, who will be sharing with us what are the ingredients needed to allow for culture and arts to grow, to thrive, to reach us, so that it helps build social cohesion. Yeah, Ms. Aziza is an educator and arts manager with a background in stage and TV productions, as well as print publications. Under various imprints, she has published works ranging from poetry to short stories and plays. Currently working in a polytechnic, Aziza is also a member of Poetry Festival Singapore, which we have heard quite a bit this morning, and the Malay Language Council. We will hear more about her and we will round it up later in the Q&A session, yeah? Okay, Ms. Aziza, please.
Hi, test. Good morning, how are you? Thank you for joining us this Saturday morning. I think my previous two speakers have really primed the stage pretty well, so that's hopefully ease in for me. I will just move away from literary and just maybe share a bit about performing arts. Just a quick background, I was from Diploma in Arts and Theatre Management in Republic Poly. I've been there for 9 years, but I took a break. Now I'm in corporate office. Yeah, so just to give a background with just before I start my sharing. A little nervous. Have not taught for a while, So I have not been in a class, and then I see a lot of familiar faces. I see some faces twitching, wondering, what on earth are you doing, woman? Just, we respond to colors, we respond to pictures, we respond to sensories differently. So it's just a simple example of how we process senses differently, and how we process information differently. So at any, let me see, hang on. So there's sounds, there's senses, sound, taste, and touch, right? And when we deal with, we work a lot with students, and we realize different students react differently to different elements. That make us realize that how then do we include them in the daily activities? How do we give them more access, ease their access to daily activities, to arts, right, through arts? So that's where myself, and I think I'm very privileged to be among like-minded people, to make arts more inclusive, because we feel there's still limited access to the arts. Oops, sorry. There you go. All right. So we make sense of the world differently, like I said. So it's very relevant to all of us because we need to know how we process senses, especially if we are related or we are caregivers to people with sensory differences. Yeah, because we need to consider the accommodations, we need to consider some modifications to allow them access to their daily activities. Yeah. So how does art facilitate social cohesion? I think we've heard from Shilpa and Chile, art as a tool connects us, it facilitates conversations, it generates empathy, it allows us to understand one another, right? It glues us together. Now, how does art, performing arts in particular, help this? Right. So Tolstoy said, the aim of art is not merely to produce beauty, right? It's a means of communication. It's an expression of any experience or of any aspect of the human condition. He goes on to say that art is a form of expression of human experience, and the person who's directed, who's receiving or consuming this art should be able to understand and relate, regardless of class, regardless of background, regardless of our circumstance, right? This is Stina Pomsek at the recent Arts and Disability Forum. Arts can foster empathy, understanding between different communities, contributing to cohesive Singapore society. So I think there's a lot of movements, a lot of talks and initiatives by government and also private organizations, education institutions to make arts accessible to all, right? With diverse abilities, not only to participate, but also to create, to co-create with us on one stage, right? I think we are at the infant stage. We've started, I think recently, maybe in the last 5 to 10 years, we're seeing more and more, but I think there's a lot more to be done. Yeah. So why art again, right? Because it's a powerful force in terms of for social integration, connecting people across differences. I think we've heard again through poetry, to art, through language, right? It's creative expression of different perspectives. And I think Shilpa mentioned it, it actually challenges stereotypes. It breaks down the barriers. It allows me to understand you better. We're looking at the same form of art. It could be poetry, it could be sculpture, it could be like a stage performance, but I interpret it differently based on my circumstance and my context. But it facilitates conversations. It starts somewhere, right? And hence it fosters understanding and empathy. So the more representation of different groups in society that we can include in our arts, it will promote diversity and inclusivity, right? And hence strengthen social cohesion. So that's what we try to do in our little space in the diploma, because we have a group of, say, 70 students per cohort. So how then do we nurture the next group of arts managers and arts producers, art makers who are empathetic, who could create art that could be accessed by all audience of diverse needs, right? So that's the little space that I will share with you later. Access in arts. What does it mean? Access Arts Hub is an initiative, it's a collective that's initiated by the Singapore Repertory Theatre. Basically, there are different groups of arts producers from different companies that get together and believe that arts should be accessible to all. So this is what they say: making venues and programs enjoyable for all in our society, regardless of ability. The beauty and power of the arts should be accessible to all, and it takes commitment to make that a reality. So it's a continued effort. I don't think we can solve this or reach perfection in the next generation. I think we have to continue doing it in all forms of art. So when we talk about access to arts, there are generally two things: access as audience and access as creators, right? How do we allow more people to watch and appreciate arts? How do we allow creators and content creators of diverse needs to be part of our pool of artists and creators? Okay. So I will talk about first access as audience. I broke them up into three. These are some of the considerations that our arts venues, our arts producers have to consider. Okay. So mobility, the physical infrastructure, and I think if you've gone to many arts venues and art spaces, most of them now, we're glad to see they're wheelchair accessible. There's also wheelchair loan, right? And there's ramps, lifts, and all this physical infrastructure are in place, even in the galleries. Some galleries and also some spaces allow assistance dogs, right? So they are able to access the venues independently, and there's always assistance on hand, right? This is a picture from National Gallery, Singapore. access guide, this is something recent. I'm not sure whether any one of you is familiar. Most of our venues, our major venues actually provide this on their website. What is access guide? It's actually wayfinding, usually in the form of visual stories, videos, 360 maps. How is it important? It allows the patrons to better plan the visits, especially if you're a caregiver. You could be a parent. You could be bringing your elderly parents to the venue. It also helps some patrons with anxieties to better prepare themselves before they enter the venue. Some of the wayfinding videos, you can actually go online. There's a lot of this. These two I picked up from Access Arts Hub. They will tell you how do you get there from a certain MRT, from a certain bus stop, so they are more familiar. So that helps to just bring down the anxiety a bit before they approach, because the needs are not monolithic. Disability is not a monolithic and singular experience. Everyone experiences it differently. Just when I showed you the red and green slides, it's very uncomfortable, right? We all process it differently. You twitch, you're like, oh, right? But we process that differently. And it's a very small example, but we don't know how our friends and patrons with different kinds of abilities access and process what we present, right? So anyway, this is just a physical guide, a physical aid for them before they even enter the venue, right? And the thing is, it can be for anybody. It helps me as a parent before I go to a venue. It helps my friends who bring their elderlies to art spaces they've never been to, right? So it's a good move that we have this in most of our venues now. Okay, the other form of access elements or assistive elements that our arts groups are providing these three. Sign language, I mean, it says for itself, so you have an interpreter visible on stage, somewhere on the side stage, visible to the patron. And the sign language interpreter, these are all trained, yeah, will sign both the heard and the spoken aspects of the performance. So the patron usually will be seated where he or she can see the interpreter clearly. Yeah. Then there's audio description, where every visual element every visual audio element is actually described in text. This one is a bit more complicated. If you go to Access Arts Hub, they will actually explain to you. 1 week before the performance, the patron will receive a description of the show, what to expect. And then 45 minutes before the show, the patron will have to go to the venue and will be allowed on stage to touch the props, to make sense of the space on stage before the rest of the patrons come onto stage, right? And during the performance, they will have a device where there is a live commentator to explain to them what is happening on stage, from your facial expressions, from the movements of the actors on stage. So there's a live commentator. Yeah. And then last, there's the closed captioning, where it gives our patrons access to audio content, including your soundscapes, your dialogues, and it's projected either on the screen, on side stage, off stage, or like a handheld device. So technology has helped. Okay, it's giving access to more patrons to come and watch the show together with the rest of us. I don't know whether any one of you knew this. National Theatre actually, last couple of years, worked with Accenture to actually come up with caption classes. This brings it another level. So it's AR glasses, where it has broadcast subtitles and includes all your light and sound cues, and it's actually customizable. So you can change the font, change the color. I change where I want the subtitles to be, top, bottom, whatever is comfortable to me. So every patron, as you can see here, they are seeing it the way they have customized the glasses to be, right? So this is a collab between National Theatre London and Accenture. I don't think we have brought it in yet. It's not cheap. I know a few of our companies have similar glasses, but I don't think it can cater to the whole theatre. Yeah. So this is life-changing for our deaf community. Yeah. Access as audience. There's also one more. This is not Republic Poly. This stands for Relaxed Performance. Just to be clear. But it's very close to me. It's close to my colleagues and students in RP because we've done relaxed performances for about 6 to 7 years now. What is a relaxed performances? Now, there are many design considerations when we do relaxed performances. It is targeted for the neurodiverse needs, and our audience has been those on the autism spectrum, right? Those with sensory disabilities, sensitivities, social learning and cognitive disabilities. So in a relaxed performance, I'll show you 5 more minutes. Oh no, okay. Okay. I will show you a few photos. I'll click through the photos quickly. In a relaxed theatre, a relaxed performance, the audience can be around the actors. They can exit and enter the theatre anytime they want. We also usually create a space, a safe, quiet space, a corner or a room for them to run to if they need to, they're a bit more anxious, they need to relax, right? So, and the things that the students learn from this, how do you make adjustment to your technical and your design, your production design, and how do you make it conducive for this group of audience? I'll let the photo speak for itself. So they're very tactile, right? So they get to touch, they get to create, they are part of the performance. So there's empowerment, they feel very involved, they're very participative, and they are very participative. This is this one on the left, I think it was in Kuala Lumpur. It was an arts healing festival. So we were invited to bring over. So those are the kids, you can see. So they're just with the performance, touching all the props. And this is while the show is going on, right? This is our ardent fan. He's there all the time, right? So this is also in KL. So you can see the patrons are just... so it's a very simple show. You don't expect it to be big musical performance, but there are many elements that are either quietened down, so the lights stay like that throughout the performance. There's also, and then free reign, they can walk around, they can touch things. But it teaches our students, I think the biggest takeaway is our students learn how to create create shows that are accessible to different groups of audience. And understanding this group, I think that's more important, the human part. The design and the technical, the management is one, but the human part was the biggest and I think the most valuable. So some of them has gone on, graduated, and are now working with special schools, a special education teacher, Rainbow Center, and a few of those NGOs. Yep. So this is at our black box in Republic Poly. So you can see some of the teachers. So they're just walking around, they're lying around. Yeah. This is in JB, also an arts festival. Just wanted to show, this validates, this is some feedback from the parents. If I can read out. A rare chance where parents could relax a while, not having to be stressed about trying to make their children conform to societal norms. So the caregivers always come and say, thank you so much for doing this. So we know the caregivers is another group of people we also need to consider when we design such shows. It was indeed an inclusive, interactive show that accommodated the children's sensory needs. Kudos to the actors who managed to keep the show going despite my son's movements, and also to those who did the wonderful props. So the actors themselves, and every show is different because we never know how the children will react and behave to the lines, to the movements. So the actors themselves need to learn how to respond appropriately. So that takes a lot of research. Means months before that, students have to do research going to education centers, like Rainbow Center works. We work a lot with them, Superhero Me, to have conversations with the educators. And so this is where I was going to get at, how and where to start. Where we say, okay, we want to do arts, but we want to do arts not only just for our typical audience, right? So how do we do that? We cannot create something for the disabled or the less able thinking we know how they feel, because we don't. So hence this motto, nothing about us without us. This is actually a motto used by a lot of disabled organizations who support such performance, such events, because it basically the principle is involves us in the show and the events and the activities you want us to be part of. We should be part of it. We should be consulted on this, right? So how do we do it? Network, communities. We speak to the educators, we speak to the researchers, we speak to the parents, we speak to the caregivers, right? Only then we are able to understand. So it took months to just do whatever show I just showed you. Months of conversations and discussions, and volunteer and watch performances. These are some of the players. Not all of them, but these are the ones that I've had privilege to be have worked with and cross path with. Last bit. Do I have 1 minute, 2 minutes? Sikit je. So access as creators. Another, I think, a very big endeavor. I think we can get there. We're getting there. Is a leveling tool. Arts. It's a very powerful leveling tool. Everyone starts on the same plane. Everyone should be given the equal opportunity to express and to create. Right? It's also an entry point for people to learn about inclusion. And by people, I mean not only us as audience, but also creators, the managers, the designers, the actors. Because when we do such performances, the conversations with them, the interactions with them, allows us to understand them better. And that breaks the prejudices, that breaks that barrier. So hence, it glues us together as a community. Yeah. Diversity, empathy, I think we spoke a lot about that already. And of course, then we see a lot more creative juices among in our tapestry, right? Network and collaborations. Kavita Krishnan is with Maya Dance Theatre. He is also the founder of Diverse Abilities Dance Collective, right? This, I think, encapsulates what some of our creators and designers feel. Making art enables me to create a shared space with empathy, and I'm able to connect with different individuals. Superhero Me is another close partner that we work with, and I highlighted Ability Blind as an aspiration. Can we, and one day, aspire to be that? Can we put everyone on stage that know who has what and what kind of abilities do we have on stage? Everyone is the same creators. Can we then aspire to be that? Right? So Superhero Me does a lot of programs, and they actually makes children with different kind of abilities on stage, and that friendships foster is priceless. Wanted to just share this. This is one of the performances that our students staged at Esplanade. One of them has Down syndrome, but nobody knew. Like, when you put them on stage, I think that's something small, but I think we felt that was a win because we could include her in it. And then more importantly, the students who were involved in this, whether or not they're actors or designers or the builders, they learn how to manage artists and talents with different kind of abilities. Yeah. So we are still learning. We are still looking for partners to work with. So if it's a space that you're interested in, please come and chat. Right? So just we actually have a lot of talents and artists with different kind of abilities who've made it very big. These are just 3 of them. There's also Dr. Zara Tan, the classical pianist. He has 2 masters from University of Michigan in piano and music. I can't remember what else. And then there's, of course, the late Cheong Seok Tin, multi-hyphenated artist, lyricist, sculptor, right? Yep. True Colours Festival is an Asian-wide, I think they've been going on for now, should be about 16, 17 years. Performing arts deepens the experiences for both the audience and performers as they meet in actual space and bring awareness and trigger change in perceptions. Right, so that's, okay, I think my last 2 slides. So accessibility and inclusivity is a long-term commitment and ongoing improvement. We're still learning, we're still talking and conversing. It involves all sections of community. So it takes a whole village and a whole ecosystem to make this work, right? So access should include providing opportunities for employment, for involvement, for participation, for co-creation, ensuring representation in governance, in decision making, right? And in programming work that's co-created by artists with disabilities, and arts activities that can be participated by all. Physical access to art spaces, I think we are somewhat there already. And how do you market arts events to a disabled audience? That is a different topic altogether, because that is another challenge. How do we market to them? Because we believe when it comes to arts experience, it starts from buying the tickets. It's not when you enter the venue. That is that customer experience. But that is still a challenge. How do we allow audiences with different kind of needs to access that? To even go to the cystic website and say, hey, I want to watch this show. How do we do that? We've not yet broken that barrier, right? So what's next? Just leaving you with some questions. Inclusivity is to accept, embrace, and incorporate and not segregate. Some of our shows are still segregative in a way, but because we are still at infancy stage. But how do we get there and make more events accessible to all? There's also a call to make design universal that can create an equitable experience, but is it viable? What are the production challenges? Right. And of course, capacity building, training more people to be able to design shows that are accessible to everybody. Last question. Who else are we missing out? We're always thinking about, are we missing? There are many other groups that we have not included. There are other groups that we have not considered in our arts programming, in our design. Who are these people? How do we approach them? How do we make it accessible to them? I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aziza. Maybe you remain on stage while I invite the other speakers on stage with me for our Q&A session. Yeah. So we have two methods here. You can always raise your hands to ask your questions, and then I think Fadli will help to give you the mic. We also have Slido, so you can scan the QR code. If you are shy to ask your question, you can scan your QR code, and I can access your questions here. Yeah, but because I'm the moderator, I'm stealing my teacher's line, Dr. Asa. He always says this. Because I'm the moderator, I have the privilege to ask the first few questions. Yeah, okay. First few. Okay, so I mean, this whole morning we talk about arts. We talk about different form of arts, right? Performative art, visual art, poetry, literature. So I think this is a question I would like each speaker to answer, from your observation, from your experience, in the arts, yeah. Do you think our youth in Singapore, right, have made use of or explored the arts to its full potential to achieve social cohesion? So what my question is asking is, every weekend, almost every weekend, we do have so many activities, from festivals, we have Singapore Night Festival, we have Singapore Writers Festival, we have Poetry Festival, we have the language festivals, we have all sorts of things here in Singapore. National level festivals, one, but we also have arts groups, doing their own thing. Almost every weekend, there's something, right? But do you think the youths that are involved in this, meaning to say the performers themselves, the art makers themselves, and those who consume them, that means attend the programs, do you think they have explored the arts to its full potential too? Do you think their goal in mind is for social cohesion, or is there something else that they are finding from the arts? Maybe whoever who wants to go first.
Yeah. Well, I think you're asking about the youth, whether the youth make full use of art, right? I think, well, nobody, well, not even us, not even the adults, make full use. I think there's still a lot of way to go for art to be able to play a bigger role in bringing people together, forging ties, forming communities, and so on. I think there's a lot more. Although we do have a lot of activities every weekend, or even every day. Let's say for weekend, like today, there are many different programs, clashing programs coming together at the same time. But then, are we reaching out to enough people? There are more people that we want to reach out to that are supposed to come, or we hope they can come, but no, there's still a lot of room to do. I'm more familiar with the Chinese programs. Every Saturday in National Library, Port, Level 5 Possibilities Room, you can see that there are just different organizations having programs. Okay? And myself being part of the organization sometimes, or I know some of the organizers, they hope to reach out to the youth that you were mentioning. And yet again and again we are seeing the participants are mostly the same group. The older group. Youth, yes, they are also using art, but I don't think they set out, just like what I mentioned earlier in my talk, that I don't set out trying to create that community. I set out because I find fun in creating art, because of the art program. And at this stage, I think it is fine. And they are able to have, for them, like my daughter, every weekend she will go to some flea market or something where they sell their handmade art or handmade items and so on. They form their friendship, and slowly from there they'll be able to find people of the same mind, create a program just like me, a student literary award, and they may have some sort of a competition and so on. I think it's fine, but no, nobody has yet reached the full potential. That's what I'm thinking.
Anyone else wants to answer?
I totally agree, because when I see my students who are usually busier with their interest groups, ACCAs, than class, they enjoy doing it. They're always there, 100% participation, and then they end late, but it doesn't matter, because but there's a sense of belonging, right, to that group. Of course, passion is one, but they enjoy the being together and creating something together, that sense of purpose. I agree, they don't start out, okay, I want to do art, I want to perform, I want to dance, I want to do theatre because I want to build social cohesion or, bring people together. But them belonging to a group is a start. Because then being in a group, interacting with other peers with different backgrounds, economic, social, whatever, but that is one level of understanding and immersing into, people with diverse backgrounds. And then hopefully that will spill on to others. And I think art is always evolving, because it evolves with the community, it evolves with the context of our time. There's always different things to talk about. There's always a different way to look at things. When you look at maybe a painting today or painting that you looked at 10 years ago, today you probably interpret it differently, right? Because the community changes, right? So that, I think, is an ongoing I won't say pursuit, because it's always incidental. It's never, okay, I want to do this because of social cohesion, but that belonging to a group is a start. Yeah.
I completely agree with the fact that arts is such a broad venue that we cannot explore it fully, and it includes the youth also. And the youth, I think, especially students, they are so bogged down with their own pressures, academic pressures, etc., that for them to think of social cohesion through arts is a big thing, is a big expectation that we put on them. I think students and children and the young right now should be just allowed to know that these avenues are available, and let them enjoy the whole process, because life is, along the span of life, you can always come back to these things, and then they can think about, the piano lessons which I took then, was so meditative that I'm coming back to, just playing for the lark, for it, for the therapy. Or you could do it right now just for social cohesion, and the whole gang is going to watch a movie or watch the theater, and so we will join. But later on, their interest may develop further. So they could be categorized that, oh, I'm more interested in these kind of theater, or I'm more interested in these genres of literature, right? So right now, we just let the youth be. With all that energy they have, let them. That's the energy they have to explore everything and anything under the sun. And I completely agree that the arts is also one venue which they should just go and just immerse themselves in. Absolutely.
Okay, interesting responses from everyone. Now, before I get to the Slido questions, are there any questions that anybody wants to ask directly to the panel? Okay, I have a hand raised. Please introduce yourself. There's a mic for you.
Hi, my name is Sohna. I'm an exchange student from the US and I'm studying at NUS. And my question is, what do you think needs to be implemented to get students who are studying in STEM professions to see the importance of the arts, so much so that they make time for it outside of their studies?
So, yeah, okay, please, Shilpa.
Yeah, I'm also from a STEM background, so I think that I can really answer your question very well. Satya Nadella from the Microsoft said that he sees writing computer codes and poetry so similar, because it's like writing in very condensed form what you want yourself to do as compared to what you want the computer to do, right? You write the algo, you write the code, etc., and then you feed it into the computer and you wait for the result to come in. Whereas poetry is something which you write and you feed it into yourself, and you do it you don't realize that you're actually feeding it, right? It just is your brain and your heart working together, and you realize that it has such deeper connotations and such a deeper effects to your own self, and so therapeutic that it just brings such a sense of peace to yourself. And so if you're a STEM student, you always, there is this path which you think which will be for career, and to take it forward for your to earn your money and to go ahead in the world. But arts, right? I mean, of course, you can take arts as a career, absolutely, which is what I have done. But you could also take arts as one which is there for your soul, which is there for you. And no one else tells you what you should believe in, which art you should actually follow, or the way you should follow it. So if I want to paint, and I want to paint this in orange and green and black, these three combinations, no one else can tell me, no, you please paint it only in pink and this. No, right? Because arts is for us, and we can have the liberty and the freedom to follow what we want. So when you are doing a career and you are doing something for yourself, they both actually work towards your own self. Career for your materialistic and for your prosperity, etc., and arts for your inner peace. And when you have the inner peace, only then you can achieve your career, right? So never, never undermine the value of arts in what we are today. Thanks.
Prof. Tan?
Just want to add a little. Well, I used to be a math student. I love math, and I was even in the math Olympiad training and so on. I was in science stream, double math, and I wanted to do computer science for my undergraduate, I remember. The only reason why I did Chinese was because, well, I got a scholarship, and they think that I've done Chinese before, so they want me to do Chinese. If not, I've been enrolled into NUS Com Science, I think. But I just want to say that these are not exclusive. Math, science, Although people say it's the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain, but I don't think so. I think a lot of them are actually related, very interrelated. I remember I went to an interview and the person in front was just asking me, so you are a science student, why are you coming here for the Chinese program or something? And I was saying, no, well, science or math train me as being a very logical person. I can look at things clearly, and I like math and science because it gives one solution. But I also like humanities or literature because it allows me to have different solutions. But can we put them all together into a creative work? Yes, you can. How you arrange your plot, it could be very logical, but how you described it could be very imaginative. Yeah, so I think there's still a lot of ways to see science and math, humanities, and logic together in the same piece of work. Yeah.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. And I think for students or people who come from the STEM background, I think I go back to one, right? I think everyone listen to music. And music itself is a form of art. There's lyrics to it. Whether or not the music is good is another thing. But I guess that's, I think, we always hear this cliche line, music is universal and it connects us wherever you are, wherever you come from. And that's an example of how the art can connect us, yeah? Okay, there is actually one question which was related to my earlier question. The question is, how do you attract youngsters, especially the Gen Zs, the young ones, to fall in love with poetry or involve themselves with the literary arts? Maybe, who would like to answer? Maybe Aziza?
I can share only because we've been working with a few groups of students and linking back to Poetry Festival for their final year projects, because it's very hard to get students, and my students are between 17 to 20 years old. It's very hard to get them to read poetry. Very cheap, cannot to understand. So then how do we do that, right? So we went around it by talk about what's the theme or topic that is close to your heart. They talk a lot about mental wellness, because they're very, very concerned about their mental well-being. Okay, well, let's talk about it. And then we picked out a few poems from the different anthologies that Poetry Fest has published and say, why don't you pick out from this? So I shortlist, and then they will pick out the poems. So what did they do with it? They had to create art installation as part of the interpretation of the poem. So we had two groups, selected similar poems, and both interpreted it differently. So in the process of trying to manifest their interpretation of the poems into the physical art installation, and we told them there must be audience interaction. You put it up somewhere on campus, and you must get people to come and interact with your installations and get their feedback. But so by understanding the poems, interpreting them, and there's a group of 5, so every member of the group would interpret it differently, which is also very beautiful. And then they will come to a consensus, okay, this is how the art installation will be like. So they're booth, interactive, and they get audience to come in. They use like audio clips, sound clips to actually verbalize the poems, the way they feel it should sound like. So it was very interesting for me, because we've looked at the poems many times, many years, and then to see this youth at probably at least 19 interpret it in their own way, in their world. How they make sense of that world is different from how I make sense of the world, right? How the poets themselves who wrote them originally intended it to be. It has evolved, so it gives it a new life, right? So that's how we pulled them into poetry. Then incidentally, they know, there's Poetry Festival. There's actually Singapore. They don't know we're Singapore poets. I say you go and find out. You pick out all this poetry. You know this is culture medallion. You go and read up. So it becomes a segue for us as educators. Go and find out, do your research, because you're doing this project. Yes, we're using the module as a platform, but it's a way to tell them, hey, there's a lot more things to the arts. All right. Then I think using that also, then tell them, how can you attract your peers to like poetry? Because I do not know how to access them. you know this is your group, right? So they will think of different ways to engage their friends, and they manage to do it. So that is the small way of getting them to pulling them into poetry. Yeah.
Interesting. I think in schools also for the young ones, pardon me, for the young ones, we should start teaching them, expose to them poetry in primary school, because formal education for literature only starts in secondary school in Singapore. I mean, generally. So the young ones should be exposed to it earlier as well. Okay.
I wanted to
Okay, because there are other questions lah. Okay.
Yeah, just
can.
very short. That when we held the inaugural edition of the National Poetry Recitation Competition, the primary entries which we got, some of them were from like 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and it was so cute. So I think when we conduct events like these or competitions like these, we kind of facilitate a process. We give the children some process and avenues, because otherwise it's like, okay, I learn poetry for what? I have a math test tomorrow, I have something like this. But when you say that, okay, there you can learn poetry, you can go and perform there, it's a competition, you may win, you may not win, and the Chinese recitation competition, they actually wear costumes. I mean, that kind of enthusiasm is generated. And so I think holding events and kind of conducting these kind of, friendly competitions, these are not like do or die competitions, these are friendly competitions, really helps us. And even for the younger, the youth, okay, the young adults, we have things like open mic, where people can just come up and, do confessional kind of poetry and say what they have on their mind. And I think these are very good platforms which are there, and we should continue to be there.
I think we have a lot to say about this because we are all poetry fests and we organize a lot of these things. But just 1 minute for me. Like the art installation is something I've done before as well. I've done pedagogically with my students wear a poetic line day. So that day they have to put up something in that way. For example, a ribbon with a poetic line written on it, a bracelet with a poetry written on it, even a T-shirt that you can just write a poem on it or something like that. So I've done this before with my students, and well, this is something which you can stir interest, let them feel that poem is just in their lives.
There are many questions in Slido, but I think one which I can ask to wrap up today's session is, just now Aziza talked about accessibility, right? How do we make the arts accessible to marginalized groups, people with disabilities, right? But there's also another aspect about, which Aziza did mention, is actually another topic altogether, which is about money and cents, right? When we want to enjoy or we want to watch, we want to go to a particular show, there is something that is stopping some groups from attending, and that is the fee, the ticket price, right? So, which is also my question, right? On one hand, you want people to come, right? But on the other, for the creator, there are things such as production fee. You must have the capital, the funding to actually produce something, right? So that's one, making it. And then you need to get people to enjoy it, right? And then another aspect is, for example, for our painters, our visual artists, right? I've heard from some groups to say that, we keep making art accessible to people. We make our programs free. We let people see our exhibition for free. But at the end of the day, people don't value it because it's free. It's free for them to enjoy. So at the end of the day, they can't actually sell their works, right? Because there's no the market is not there for them. People don't understand the value of the art itself. So over here, it's a chicken and egg situation, right? So related to that, there's a question in Slido. It says, where is it? Okay, so should all arts venue space higher rate, the venue higher rate, be at a reasonable price for all arts groups to enjoy, to benefit, meaning to help them to elevate that kind of production cost, because it's a pity for new groups, some interest groups who are new or who are small, who do not have any funding, right? So we also understand that there are funding out there for arts groups to apply, to seek to help them grow their art. Yeah. So that's a very big question. Maybe Aziza, you want to try explaining what's your view on this? How do we maneuver in this kind of setting?
Funding is another lecture altogether. Poetry festival is always asking also. Okay, I think the first thing that comes to mind is even in PFS, we always question, do we charge our events? And Prof say, you cannot charge poetry events, nobody will come. I don't know that you were at a meeting. Prof say, no. But anyway, so arts and funding is, again, a very big topic, very contentious, and making theatre already is very expensive, right? Now, about making it accessible to many other considerations, not just the venue, because the venues already have their physical infrastructures in place, but there's also the production elements, right, for them to consider. And then getting the right designers, the specialists who know how to design, who have the design sensibilities to design a production that is accessible. So I don't have an answer to this, because I think at the end of it, it takes a whole ecosystem to make this possible. Of course, the funders, our sponsors, the makers, will have to come together and see how to make this more viable, right? Without even the access in mind, I know how expensive it is to run. I think we are still trying to recoup after COVID. It's very hard for our fellow arts friends and practitioners. I think we need more funders and sponsors to come in. I do not know how this can be solved overnight. I wish I can say we can be more creative in creating works that can be accessible, that can also make the arts a sustainable source of income. Right? It's always a challenge. It's a continuous conversation with parents, with students, with graduates. How do I stay in this sector that I so much very love in, but at the same time, I'm also fighting against, pragmatic life choices. Yeah.
Anybody wants to add on?
After so many years of being part of art making and programming and so on, I come to realize one thing, that finding money has to be part of all this. And for any artist, you have to realize that once you want to do art, you have to find ways to get your funding, to get sponsorships. You cannot expect that, because I'm a very good artist, I just concentrate on my artwork and the other things will just fall into place, which is never the case. Once you realize this, I think it's much easier. It's part and parcel of the thing. And actually, it could make you into a better artist, because it is so difficult to get. And once you get that funding, you treasure it and you make better art with it.
Shilpa, anything to add?
PFS is very privileged, and we get the funding from the National Arts Council. But whatever funds we get, we use it to give it back to all our panelists, our moderators, our readers, participants who are there. And so it goes back. So as Aziza said very rightly, that it is an ecosystem, and the festival supports the readers and the poets and the panelists and the moderators, the guests, speakers, etc., etc. So but the very valid point which Dr. Chile has said is that we need to find more avenues of getting funds, more sponsorships. This is why, one of my slides mentioned that we should look at corporate sponsorship, if we could kind of get that, because they do have this CSR component to this. So if they could not be intimidated by arts. They support a lot of fitness programs, etc. Like you have the OCBC Fitness and Aquatic Center, etc. Why not the literary arts and why not the performing arts, right? Why don't we have a little bit of their sponsorships? So it will just help everyone get paid better, get organize events on a larger scale, and have wider outreach. Thanks.
Okay, so that wraps up our session this afternoon. It's already afternoon. It's 1 p.m. So maybe just a few thoughts to wrap up this session. The arts is indeed an important space and platform for the society to exchange dialogues, conversations. It makes us think and reflect about the condition of our society today, right? At one point, you enjoy watching a performance or looking at a visual art or a piece of music, but on the other hand, it also makes us reflect on your own condition and the society as well, and hopefully it creates that conversation between one another, and we should actually nurture the interest towards it. So a forum like this is important because we can continue creating art, writing, producing, putting on shows and all that, but there must be a platform to discuss what arts mean to us in Singapore and for the society, and one more thing is that back to the importance of art, it actually fills our soul, right? It touches us. That means arts can touch you in no other things. You can always stare at the computer, can always watch your stocks or whatever, but at the end of the day, we all go back to arts to fill our soul. Okay, with that, we conclude our session today, and I will hand over the mic back to Tauhid. Thank you, everyone.